On the edge of Europe, where the land finally runs out and the ocean takes over, sits an island roughly the size of the US state of Indiana. Rain falls here on more than half the days of the year. Not the dramatic kind that arrives and leaves, a soft, endless kind. The kind that seems to have always been there and always will. Here is the strange part. Barely 5 million people live on this island today. And yet right now, scattered across the earth, in Boston kitchens, in Sydney pubs, in Buenos Aires living rooms, more than 70 million people will tell you, without hesitating, that this island is where they come from. 13 times more descendants than the island itself holds people. The land here does not forget easily. Farmers still cut black bricks of fuel from the ground, the way their grandparents did. Green fields run straight into stone walls that have stood since before anyone can remember building them. This is not a place people simply pass through. This is Ireland. An island in the North Atlantic. Official languages, Irish and English. A population barely over 5 million. And somehow, the ancestral home of a nation 70 million strong. This is not the tourist's island. This is the story of what it means to belong to a place, even long after you, or your grandparents, or their grandparents left it behind. Invest just 30 minutes with me right now, and I'll show you a side of Ireland that isn't taught in schools or known by the locals. This is the ultimate deep dive. Let's strip back the layers. Now let's actually go there. West, to where Ireland runs out of land and the Atlantic takes over completely. This travel documentary starts where most tourist routes into Ireland end, on the cliffs, in the wind, at the edge of Europe itself. Most people picture Ireland as small, tame, a postcard. Small it is not, once you start walking its edges. 2,500 kilometers of coastline on the west side alone, the longest defined coastal touring route anywhere on Earth. Beneath a fifth of that land is bog. Black, waterlogged ground, built up one dead plant at a time for thousands of years. Not decoration, not backdrop, actual living ground that Irish families still walk out into every spring. A story for later. Here's the layer most visitors never get shown. Most people assume the pyramids are the oldest large stone monuments on Earth. They are not. 500 years before the first pyramid rose at Giza, 1,000 years before Stonehenge was finished, farmers on this island, working with nothing but stone tools, raised a mound of earth and rock in County Meath, 12 meters high, older than written history itself. They aligned its inner passage with such precision that once a year, on the shortest morning of winter, a blade of sunlight travels 19 meters down a stone tunnel and touches the very back wall of a chamber sealed in total darkness the other 364 days. 17 minutes. That's all the light gets. Then it's gone again for a year. Every winter, thousands apply for a chance to stand inside when it happens. Only a lucky few are chosen, by lottery. People who have never set foot on this island enter that lottery every single year, just for 17 minutes of 5,000-year-old sunlight. That is the kind of pull this ground has. The coastline is dramatic because the Atlantic never really stops working on it. Storms strip the cliffs back a little more each winter. The bog keeps forming, keeps sinking, keeps remembering. Nothing here is finished. It never was. Follow that coast north for a while, and the cliffs give way to small stone harbors. And that's where the people actually are. Let's go meet them. Pull into any small harbor town before the sun is fully up, and here's what greets you first: chimney smoke. Not the thin, invisible kind. Gas heating gives off a thick, sweet, earthy smoke curling low over the rooftops. Most people assume a modern European country runs entirely on electricity and gas by now. Ireland mostly does, but not entirely. Right now, in this exact moment, roughly 1 in every 7 Irish households is burning fuel that came out of the ground with a hand tool called a slian, a long, angled spade built for one job only: cutting turf. Every spring, families still walk out onto the bog together, cut it into brick-shaped sods, stack them in small pyramids to dry through the summer, carry them home before the first frost. It is slow, it is physical. Grandparents teach it to grandchildren, the exact same way it was taught to them. One farmer on the west coast put it simply: gas is for people who can afford it. Turf is for people who still remember how not to need it. Walk the fields further inland, and the next detail catches most visitors completely off guard. There are almost exactly as many sheep in Ireland as there are people. Roughly 5 million of each, give or take. Not a folk saying. A real count from a real government survey. You will see them everywhere, grazing on hillsides too steep for anything else, wandering the edges of roads with no fence in sight, utterly unbothered by traffic. Spring here means lambing season. Farmers up at 3, 4 in the morning, checking fields by torchlight, because a wrong turn in the weather can undo a year's work in a single night. This is not Postcard Island. This is the version that actually keeps the lights and the fires on. All that outdoor work builds a serious appetite, and that's where the real Irish table comes in. Not the one on the tourist menus. Let's sit down to it. Quick one before we keep moving. Which country should this channel visit next? Drop your pick in the comments below. Step into any real kitchen here, not a restaurant built for visitors. And the first thing you will smell is bread. Soda bread. No yeast, no rising time, no waiting around. Just flour, buttermilk, salt, and 1 spoon of bread soda, mixed, shaped, scored with a cross on top, and in the oven within minutes, on the table inside the hour. It exists because of one simple, practical reason. The wheat that grows in this wet climate was historically too soft for yeast bread. So people adapted, and the adaptation became the tradition. Now follow that same instinct to the coast, where fishing boats still come in, loaded with mussels, oysters, and whatever the Atlantic gave up that morning. Most of it turned into a thick, cream-based chowder eaten the same day it's caught. And then, inland, there's the potato. Boiled, mashed into boxty, a soft potato pancake, fried on a griddle. Simple, cheap, filling. Here's the layer most travel shows skip completely. For 150 years, this crop was not just food. It was survival itself for millions of people here, a fact that gets a lot heavier a little later in this story. Now for the one thing almost every visitor gets wrong before they even land. Most people think Guinness is just a heavy, dark beer. Locals will tell you, quietly but firmly, that it is closer to a ritual than a drink. Pour it wrong and you'll know. 119.5 seconds. Timed, official, non-negotiable. Rush it, and the bartender will simply set it back down and make you wait. Grass has a lot to do with why the dairy tastes different here too. Irish cows graze outdoors roughly 240 days a year, one of the longest natural grazing seasons anywhere in Europe. That's what's actually behind the butter everyone keeps talking about. None of this is on a laminated tourist menu. This is just what's on the table on an ordinary Tuesday. Now, follow that same coastline a little further, because the land itself has one more secret, and it walks on 4 legs, or occasionally flies. Head south along that same coast, and the ground itself starts doing something that should not be possible. Welcome to the Burren. A stretch of exposed grey limestone in County Clare that looks, from a distance, like the surface of another planet. Most people assume Ireland is just soft green pasture, top to bottom. Here, it is bare rock, cracked into thousands of narrow fissures. And inside those cracks, botanists have found something that should not exist anywhere on Earth. Arctic alpine flowers. The kind that normally survive only in near-freezing mountain conditions. Roughly 75% of every native flowering plant species in Ireland exists somewhere inside this landscape. A landscape that makes up barely 1% of the country's total land. Now look up and follow the coast further west, out to a jagged pyramid of rock rising straight out of the Atlantic, 12 kilometers offshore. 6th century monks rowed out to that rock in boats made of animal hide stretched over wood. And once there, by hand, with no mortar, they carved 618 steps directly into the cliff face, climbing 200 meters above the sea, to build a monastery on a ledge that barely fits it. Today, the birds have taken it back. Up to 8,000 puffins nest along those same steps every summer, utterly unbothered by the hour-long boat crossing full of pilgrims and photographers that now arrives every summer morning. A few kilometers away, on the neighboring rock, nearly 27,000 pairs of gannets crowd together, the second largest colony of its kind anywhere on the planet. Here's the thing about this place. Some people came here and chose to leave everything behind for something they believed in. Millions more, later, had no choice at all. Now go back to that potato, the one from the kitchen table earlier. Because in the autumn of 1845, something happened to it that changed this island forever. A blight arrived, carried in on ships from across the Atlantic. Within weeks, healthy green potato fields turned black and collapsed into a rotting, foul-smelling pulp. Overnight, in some cases, between one evening and the next morning. For roughly 3 million people here, that plant was not a side dish. It was nearly the entire diet. A single small plot could feed a family for a year. There was no backup plan because there had never needed to be one. What would you have done? Watching the one thing standing between your children and starvation turn to black slime in the ground, with no way to know if next year's crop would survive either. Over the next 7 years, roughly 1 million people died, mostly from disease that tore through bodies already weakened by hunger. Roughly 1 million more got on ships, many of them so overcrowded and disease-ridden that people started calling them coffin ships, because that is exactly what a frightening number of them became. In 1841, this island held over 8 million people. By 1851, barely 6.5 million remained. The bleeding did not stop there. It continued for decades. By the early 1900s, the population had fallen to under 4.5 million, barely half of what it had been, in a country that, unlike almost anywhere else in Europe that century, kept shrinking instead of growing. If a single fact from this entire story deserves your full attention, it's this one. For 170 years, more people left this island than were born and stayed on it. Emigration was not the exception here. For generation after generation, it was simply what growing up meant. That is the actual origin of the 70 million people scattered across the world from the very beginning of this video. Not distant curiosity. Direct, unbroken bloodline from families who had absolutely no choice. If a story like that deserves to be heard properly, and not reduced to a single famous famine-era photograph, a like tells us people still want stories with this much weight behind them. Here is where it turns. In 2022, for the first time since that 1851 census, over a century and a half later, this island's population climbed back above 5 million people. Not because the famine was forgotten, because a country that once could not feed its own people has spent the last 30 years building something almost nobody in 1851 could have imagined. Glass office towers in Dublin housing some of the largest technology companies on Earth. A passport that descendants around the world now apply for in the tens of thousands every single year, just to formally reconnect with a place their family never chose to leave behind. The wound is real. So is what grew back over it. Follow the river back into Dublin now, because that is exactly where this story is happening, in real time, tonight. Dublin, on any given evening, looks almost aggressively modern. Glass towers along the docklands hold European headquarters for some of the largest technology companies on the planet. This is not a museum of a country, it is a working one. But walk into the right pub after dark, and you'll hear something underneath all that glass and glow. A fiddle starts, then a bodhran drum, then Willian pipes, an instrument played with the elbow, not the mouth, unlike almost any other bagpipe on Earth. No sheet music, no set list. Musicians just arrive, sit in a circle, and follow each other. Ask a local what that gathering is called, and they'll tell you one word: craic. Roughly, the fun, the conversation, the atmosphere of a place, all at once. There's no clean English translation. You just have to be in the room. Now for the part most tourism videos skip entirely. Nearly 1.9 million people nationwide can hold a conversation in Irish, but strip that down to people who actually speak it daily outside a classroom, and the real number falls to roughly 72,000, most of them concentrated in small Gaeltacht regions along the west coast, home altogether to just over 100,000 people. A living language, genuinely alive, also undeniably fragile. And here is the part that connects everything you've seen in this video back to where it started. Right now, in 2026, rent in this country has crossed 2,000 euros a month for the first time in its history. Homelessness numbers have climbed past 16,000 people, and a new wave of young Irish professionals, nurses, teachers, engineers, are once again boarding planes. Not because there's no work, there's plenty of work. They're leaving because they cannot afford to stay. It is not 1847. Nobody is starving. But the same island that once forced an entire generation out through hunger is, in its own modern way, still asking some of its people the exact same question their great-great-grandparents faced. Stay and struggle, or leave and survive somewhere else. And still, most of them don't want to go. Ask any of them why they stay, and money is almost never the honest answer. Head to any parish on a Sunday afternoon, and you'll start to understand what they mean instead. A small crowd gathers around a patch of grass that probably hasn't changed much in 80 years. Kids on the sideline in county colours, a grandmother with a flask of tea standing exactly where she stood every second Sunday for 40 years. And out on the pitch, grown adults, teachers, farmers, nurses, guards, playing with an intensity that looks, from the sideline, completely professional. It is not. That's the entire point. This is Gaelic Games, hurling and Gaelic football, organised by an association founded in 1884, at a time when Irish identity itself was under quiet, constant pressure. The founders built something almost nobody expected to survive this long: a sporting body with a club in nearly every single parish on the island, over 500,000 members, and one unbroken rule at its core: nobody gets paid. Not the amateurs on the village pitch, not the players who fill Croke Park to its full 82,300 capacity every September for the All-Ireland Finals, one of the largest stadiums anywhere in Europe. Most people assume that any sport capable of selling out a stadium that size must come with a payroll to match. Here, it does not. Never has. The players train like professionals. Some of them wake up at 5 in the morning to fit training in before a full day's work because there is no salary to make that job unnecessary. They do it purely for the right to wear their county's jersey in front of their own community for one more season. And there's a rule that makes it even stranger to outsiders. You can only ever play for the county where you were born or where your family is from, not the highest bidder, not whichever club happens to want you, just home. That's the entire eligibility requirement. Watch a hurling match closely, and you'll see why locals call it the fastest field sport on the planet. The ball, a small leather sliotar, regularly travels over 150 kilometers an hour off a well-struck hurley, faster than a professional ice hockey slap shot achieved by a schoolteacher who was grading homework the night before. There is no equivalent anywhere else quite like it. An entire nation organizing itself, parish by parish, county by county, around sport that will never make anyone rich. Sport that exists purely because enough people, generation after generation, decided that representing home was worth more than a paycheck ever could be. On All-Ireland Final Day in September, something else happens that ties every earlier thread of this story together. Flights into Dublin fill up weeks in advance, not with tourists, with emigrants. People who left for London, Boston, Sydney, sometimes decades ago, flying home for one specific Sunday, wearing a county jersey they've owned since childhood, to stand in Croke Park and sing an anthem in a language most of them can barely speak anymore. For those 3 hours, the 70 million people scattered across the earth and the 5 million still living here are, for once, exactly the same thing: home fans. The women's games have grown just as fiercely in recent years. Camogie and ladies' Gaelic football now draw their own packed stadiums, their own fierce county rivalries, their own children on sidelines, dreaming of the same unpaid, unglamorous, absolutely essential jersey. Nobody is getting rich from any of it. That was true in 1884. It is still true tonight. That is as honest an answer as this story is going to get. So let's bring it all the way home. If you're planning this trip yourself, go between May and September, when the Atlantic weather turns from wild to merely unpredictable. Budget roughly 100 to 150 euros a day for a comfortable mid-range trip. More in Dublin, less once you're out in the countryside. Visitors from the US, UK, and most of the EU don't need a visa for stays under 90 days. Just a valid passport. One local courtesy worth knowing. If someone buys you a round in the pub, you buy the next one. Skipping it gets noticed. Pack for rain regardless of the season, and for the sights themselves. The cliffs of Moher pull in over 1 million visitors a year, so go at first light. And if Skellig Michael is on your list, book months ahead. Only a handful of boats are licensed to land there each day. Every place has a story this deep. Most have never been told properly. If you want to hear them, subscribe. Next week, somewhere just as unforgettable. Which country should this channel visit next? Scotland, Iceland, Portugal, or Wales? Drop your pick below.